Adrift in Paradise. Maya Chen clutched her conference materials tighter as fat raindrops began to splatter against the cobblestones of Ubud's market district. The sudden downpour was typical for Bali in November, but it caught her completely off guard. Her colleagues from the Marine Conservation Conference had vanished into the labyrinth of narrow streets, while she'd lingered too long at a stall selling intricate coral-inspired jewelry. "Great," she muttered, fumbling for her phone only to find it at 5% battery. The map app opened and promptly closed as her screen went black. Perfect timing. Ducking into the narrow awning of a closed shop, Maya pushed her damp hair from her face. 3 days into her first international conference, and she was already living up to her reputation as the lab's absent-minded genius. Her advisor would never let her hear the end of this if she missed the evening's keynote because she got lost in a marketplace. "You look like you could use this more than me." The voice came from her left, warm and accented. A man extended a small travel umbrella toward her. He had warm brown eyes that crinkles at the corners, and a camera protected inside his waterproof jacket. "Oh, I couldn't," Maya began. "Please, take it. I'm George." His smile was easy, genuine. "I'm staying just around the corner. You look like you're very far from where you need to be." Maya hesitated, then accepted the umbrella. "Maya, and yes, I'm supposed to be at the Purisanti Hotel for a conference. My group is probably already back." "Ah, the Marine Conservation event. That's on the other side of town." Georgia pointed down the rapidly flooding street. "Not the best time to walk." Thunder rumbled overhead, making the decision for her. "There's a cafe just there," Georgia suggested, pointing to a warm glow about 50 yards away. "Perhaps we wait out the worst. I can help you find a taxi after." Under normal circumstances, Maya would have declined. She'd come to Bali to present her research on coral reef regeneration, not to follow strangers to cafes. But there was something reassuring about George's presence, an openness that put her at ease despite the chaos of the rain and her predicament. The cafe was a tiny sanctuary of warmth and the rich aroma of Balinese coffee. They claimed a small table by the window, watching the rain transform the streets into flowing streams. "So, marine conservation?" Georgia asked after they'd ordered. Maya nodded, surprising herself with how easily she began explaining her work. Usually, it took her hours to warm up to strangers, but George listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed he was truly engaged. "And you, what brings you to Bali?" "I'm a photographer." Georgia gestured to his camera. "I document traditional ceremonies and daily life across Southeast Asia for a travel magazine. I've been island hopping for 2 months." Their conversation flowed effortlessly through 2 cups of coffee and a shared plate of pisang goreng, fried bananas with honey. Maya discovered that Georgie was from Barcelona, that he'd left a corporate job 3 years ago to pursue photography, and that his favorite subject was people in moments of pure joy. By the time the rain subsided to a gentle patter, Maya had nearly forgotten her panic. Georgia insisted on accompanying her to find a taxi, and as they walked through the freshly washed streets, Ubud seemed transformed, more vibrant and less intimidating. "Will you have any free time during your conference?" Georgia asked as a taxi finally approached. Maya thought of her meticulously planned schedule of panels and networking events. "I have tomorrow afternoon off." They scheduled free time for cultural activities. "Perhaps," Georgia seemed suddenly hesitant, "if you're interested, I know some less touristy temples nearby, places most visitors never see." Maya surprised herself again by saying, "I'd like that," and meaning it completely. As the taxi pulled away, Maya watched George grow smaller in the distance. She felt a strange lightness in her chest, a feeling that something unexpected had just begun, like the first ripple across a still pond, promising waves to come. Tides of trust. Maya adjusted her glasses nervously as she scanned the crowd outside the Hindu water temple, Tirtha Empul. Georgia had suggested meeting here at 2, and it was already 10 past. The morning sessions on coral bleaching had run overtime, leaving her barely enough time to change from her conference attire into a light sundress and sandals. "I thought maybe you changed your mind," came a familiar voice. Maya turned to find Georgie approaching, camera hanging from his neck, wearing a relaxed linen shirt that caught the breeze. "Sorry, I'm late. Science waits for no one, apparently." She smiled, surprising herself with the ease she felt in his presence. "Worth waiting for," he replied, the sincerity in his voice making her cheeks warm. "Come, we'll skip the main pools. I know a local entrance." George led her past the crowds of tourists to where an elderly Balinese man greeted him with a familiar handshake. They exchanged words in Indonesian, George's accent making the man laugh heartily. "Nyoman is a temple guardian," Georgia explained, as they followed him through a small gate. They entered a quieter courtyard, where several Balinese families performed purification rituals in sacred spring water. Maya watched, transfixed by the reverence in their movements. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "They believe the water cleanses not just the body, but the spirit," Georgia said softly. "Nyoman says visitors come for photos, but locals come for renewal." They spent the afternoon exploring hidden corners of the temple complex, Georgia occasionally photographing while explaining the spiritual significance of each space. Maya found herself captivated not just by the surroundings, but by George's perspective, the way he saw beauty in weathered stone and quiet moments. Later, they sat at a small warung restaurant overlooking terraced rice fields, sharing plates of nasi campur and fresh mango juice. The setting sun cast golden light across the patties, transforming them into mirrors reflecting the sky. "You never said why marine biology," George commented, breaking a comfortable silence. Maya traced the rim of her glass. "My grandfather was a fisherman in Taiwan before immigrating to America. He used to tell me stories about how the reefs were disappearing, how the fish he once knew were vanishing." She paused. "I wanted to do something about it. Not just document the loss, but find ways to reverse it." "That's why your research matters so much to you," George observed. "Yes, but lately," Maya hesitated, "my latest regeneration technique failed spectacularly. My funding could be cut if I don't show results soon." George reached across the table, his fingers briefly touching hers. "The ocean has time. Perhaps your corals just need patience." The simple kindness in his words loosened something in Maya's chest. "What about you? Why photography?" George's expression shifted slightly. "My father built a successful import business in Barcelona. Everyone assumed I would take over." He looked out toward the darkening fields. "But I saw how the business consumed him, how he rarely looked up to see the world around him. When I told him I wanted to photograph the world instead of selling it piece by piece, he shrugged. We haven't spoken properly in 2 years." "I'm sorry," Maya said quietly. "My mother calls weekly, asking when I'm coming home to be serious about life." His smile held a touch of sadness. "She doesn't understand that this is the most serious I've ever been about anything." The vulnerability in his admission created an invisible thread between them. Maya found herself sharing her own family's confusion about her choice to study rocks and fish instead of pursuing medicine. As night fell, their conversation deepened, punctuated by laughter and moments of understanding that felt rare and precious. Walking back toward her hotel, they took a longer route through gently lit pathways. Their hands brushed occasionally, each touch sending quiet ripples through Maya's composure. "Will you see me tomorrow?" Georgia asked as they reached the hotel entrance. Maya thought of her packed schedule, the networking dinner she should attend. "There's a Balinese dance performance at the palace tomorrow night. I was planning to go after my last session." Cross currents. The Ubud Palace courtyard pulsed with gamelan music, metallic tones ringing through the humid evening air as dancers in elaborate golden costumes performed the lagong, a traditional dance of divine messengers. Maya stood at the edge of the crowd, searching for Jorge's familiar profile among the spectators, but seeing only tourists and locals she didn't recognize. Her stomach tightened with disappointment. Perhaps he'd changed his mind, or found more interesting subjects to photograph than an awkward marine biologist who spent most of her life in laboratories. "Looking for someone?" The voice of Dr. Westinghouse, the conference keynote speaker, broke through her thoughts. "Oh, just admiring the architecture," Maya lied, gesturing vaguely at the ornate temple carvings. The older scientist nodded appreciatively. "I wanted to tell you that your presentation this morning was remarkable, Dr. Chen.
Your approach to artificial reef substrates is exactly the kind of innovation we need." Maya thanked him automatically, but her attention remained divided. As Dr. Westinghouse continued discussing potential collaboration opportunities, Maya spotted Nyoman, the temple guardian from yesterday, making his way through the crowd. "Excuse me," Maya said, cutting the conversation short. "I just saw someone I need to speak with." She caught up with Nyoman near a food stall. "Excuse me, Nyoman, I'm Maya, Jorge's friend from yesterday." Recognition lit his weathered face. "Ah, yes, Jorge's special friend." His expression turned sympathetic. "He very sorry. His magazine call, emergency assignment on Gili Islands. Boat leave this afternoon." Maya's heart sank. A message? "He very sorry. His magazine call, emergency assignment on Gili Islands. Boat leave this afternoon." Nyoman patted her hand gently. "He say he try to return before you leave Bali." Oh, the simple syllable couldn't contain her disappointment. "Thank you for telling me." Maya drifted away from the performance, the colorful spectacle suddenly less vibrant. She found a quiet bench in a nearby garden and sat, trying to rationalize her feelings. It was ridiculous to feel this dejected about someone she'd known for barely 2 days, a traveler who probably made connections like this in every port. After watching the moon rise over the palace rooftops, Maya decided to have dinner at a small restaurant Nyoman had recommended yesterday. At least she could salvage the evening with good food. The restaurant, Warung Ibu Oka, was tucked down a narrow alley adorned with hanging lanterns. Maya had just been seated at a small corner table when she heard a familiar accented voice ordering at the counter. Jorge turned, plate in hand, and froze when he saw her. His surprised expression quickly melted into a smile that reached his eyes. "Maya, I've been looking everywhere for you." Confusion replaced her initial surge of happiness. "But Nyoman said you left for the Gili Islands." Jorge set his plate down and took the seat across from her. "I was supposed to. The magazine wanted photos of a sea turtle release, but I asked another photographer to cover it." His eyes held hers. "I couldn't leave without saying goodbye properly." "You gave up an assignment? Won't your editor be upset?" Jorge shrugged, the gesture distinctly Mediterranean. "Some things matter more than photographs." The weight of his words settled between them as a server brought Maya's food. They ate amid conversation that flowed easily from marine conservation to Balinese traditions, from childhood memories to future dreams. But underlying it all was an unspoken current, a recognition that whatever was happening between them had become significant enough to prioritize over professional obligations. After dinner, they walked through Ubud's evening market, where artists sold paintings by lamplight, and street musicians played haunting bamboo flutes. When rain began to fall, a gentle, warm shower, Jorge pulled Maya under the shelter of a banyan tree. Standing close enough to feel the warmth of his body, Maya finally asked the question that had been lingering since she'd first seen him at the restaurant. "Why did you really stay?" Jorge's gaze was steady, honest. "Because in my work, I have learned to recognize rare moments, instances that deserve to be captured, to be experienced fully." He brushed a raindrop from her cheek, his touch lingering. "Meeting you feels like one of those moments." In the soft rainfall, with the sounds of the market muffled around them, Maya leaned forward and kissed him, a scientist taking a leap without calculating the landing. Jorge's arms encircled her, his response unhurried yet certain, like a tide that had been waiting patiently to rise. When they finally parted, Maya rested her forehead against his. "I leave in 3 days," she whispered, the reality of their situation settling over her like the gentle rain. "Then we have 3 days," Jorge replied, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "And I intend to make each one count." Weathering the storm. The morning dawned with a peculiar stillness over Bali, the calm before a storm, as the locals described it. Maya stood on her hotel balcony, watching dark clouds gather on the horizon while she spoke to her research partner back in San Francisco. The samples from the conference are incredible, Liz, Maya said into her phone, trying to focus on science instead of the memory of Jorge's kiss. Dr. Ramachandran's team has isolated a strain of heat-resistant algae that could revolutionize our approach. Sounds promising, Liz replied, her voice tinny through the connection. By the way, the department head wants to know if you're considering that research position in Australia. They need an answer by next week. The mention of the job offer sent a ripple of anxiety through her. The prestigious position at the Great Barrier Reef Institute would advance her career dramatically, but accepting meant committing to 3 years in Queensland. I'll decide when I get back, Maya said, ending the call just as a text from Jorge arrived. Morning, scientist. Still interested in seeing those hidden coves I mentioned? Weather might turn, but we can beat it if we leave soon. An hour later, Maya found herself on a small motorboat skimming across the waters between Bali and Nusa Penida Island. Jorge navigated confidently, pointing out flying fish and seabirds as they crossed the channel. Despite the darkening sky, Maya felt a thrill of adventure, a sensation foreign to her methodical nature. There, Jorge called over the engine noise, pointing toward a secluded cove sheltered by towering limestone cliffs. That beach is only accessible by boat, and most tourists don't know it exists. They anchored in crystal waters and waded to shore, carrying a small pack with lunch and Jorge's ever-present camera. The beach was a perfect crescent of white sand, framed by jungle-covered cliffs and scattered with colorful shells. It's like something from a dream, Maya said, turning slowly to absorb the pristine beauty. Jorge smiled, capturing her expression with his camera. The local fishermen consider it sacred. They believe sea spirits rest here between journeys. They explored tide pools, teeming with marine life, Jorge capturing while Maya identified species with infectious enthusiasm. When they discovered a rare blue starfish, Maya's face lit with such joy that Jorge lowered his camera and simply watched her. "What?" she asked, noticing his gaze. "You transform when you talk about the ocean. It's beautiful to witness." Their picnic on the sand felt intimate, sharing mango and sticky rice while trading stories of childhood dreams. As they talked, the wind began to strengthen, whipping Maya's hair across her face. "The storm's coming faster than I expected," Jorge frowned, looking at the rapidly darkening sky. "We need to head back." They rushed to the boat, but before they could push off, the first massive raindrops began to fall. Within minutes, the gentle breeze had become a howling wind, churning the once calm sea. "We can't cross in this," Jorge shouted over the storm's roar. "We need to find shelter." Abandoning the boat in a protected inlet, they ran back towards the cliffs where Jorge had noticed a shallow cave. They reached it just as lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the turbulent sea they'd narrowly avoided. "Well," Jorge said, wringing water from his shirt as they settled deeper into the dry cave, "this wasn't quite the romantic excursion I planned." Despite her drenched clothes and the unexpected danger, Maya found herself laughing. Actually, getting stranded in a storm is very on brand for marine biologists. We have a knack for underwater adventures. Jorge's smile warmed the space between them as he unpacked emergency supplies: a small lantern, a thermal blanket, and a radio to contact the mainland. After confirming with local fishermen that the storm would pass by morning and that they knew their location, there was nothing to do but wait. As evening fell, they huddled together beneath the thermal blanket, the storm raging beyond their shelter. The forced proximity stripped away the last of their pretenses. "I had an offer today," Maya said quietly, her head resting against Jorge's shoulder. "A research position in Australia. 3 years studying climate impacts on the Great Barrier Reef." Jorge's arm tightened slightly around her. "That sounds like an incredible opportunity." "It is," she agreed, listening to his heartbeat. "But I've been so focused on following the planned route, undergraduate, PhD, postdoc, research position, I never considered there might be other paths worth exploring." Jorge was silent for a moment.
Converging horizons.
The departure terminal at Denpasar International Airport buzzed with activity as Maya checked her luggage for the flight back to San Francisco. The 3 days following the storm had passed in a blur of intense connection. Jorge showing her hidden temples at sunrise, Maya explaining the delicate ecosystems of mangrove forests at sunset, and countless moments of discovery in between. Now, reality loomed like the planes visible through the terminal windows. Maya had extended her stay by 2 days already, missing preliminary lab meetings that her team had covered for her. There were no more reasonable excuses to delay. "Your boarding pass, Miss Chen," the airline attendant said, sliding the document across the counter. "Gate 24, boarding in 40 minutes. Maya nodded her thanks and turned to where Jorge waited nearby. The photographer looked uncharacteristically subdued, his usual easy smile replaced with something more fragile. "So," she said, approaching him, "this is it." "This is it," he echoed, taking her hand. "Although I'm still hoping for a cinematic airport chase scene where you dramatically abandon your career to run away with the charming photographer." The joke fell flat between them, too close to the unspoken wish beneath it. Maya squeezed his fingers. "I have to go back, Jorge. My research team, my responsibilities." "I know," he said quickly. "I would never actually ask you to abandon something that matters so much." They found a quiet corner near a cafe, ordering coffees neither really wanted, just an excuse to extend these final moments. "I've been thinking about what happens next," Maya said carefully. "Long-distance relationships have a statistically low success rate, especially with two people who travel as much as we do." Jorge's expression tightened. "Is that the scientist speaking, or the woman I've come to know?" "Both," Maya admitted. "The scientist knows the data, but the woman—" She took a deep breath. "The woman knows that some hypotheses deserve testing regardless of probable outcomes." Hope flickered in Jorge's eyes. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm not ready for this to end, Jorge. I'm saying I want to try, across oceans, time zones, whatever it takes. Because what we found here isn't something I can simply catalog and file away." Jorge leaned forward, his coffee forgotten. "And Australia?" "I haven't decided yet," she said honestly, "but I realized something during our time together. I've been so focused on saving coral reefs that I forgot to build a life worth living alongside that work." She met his gaze steadily. "You reminded me that passion doesn't have to be singular, that there's room for more than one kind of love in a life." The announcement for pre-boarding of her flight interrupted the moment. Maya stood reluctantly, gathering her carry-on. They walked to the security checkpoint hand in hand, each step heavier than the last. At the final barrier, Jorge pulled her into an embrace that felt like an ending. "I'll call when I land," Maya promised against his shoulder. "And I'll answer wherever I am," he replied, his voice rough with emotion. When they parted, Maya forced herself to walk through security without looking back, each step requiring deliberate effort. The scientist in her knew this was the rational choice: return to her work, her life, and see if this connection could survive distance and time. Waiting at the gate, Maya scrolled through photos on her phone, images Jorge had sent her of their time together. The hidden temple at dawn, their rain-soaked faces after the storm, the perfect moment he'd captured of her examining a tide pool, completely absorbed in wonder. The final boarding call echoed through the terminal. Maya rose mechanically, joining the queue of passengers. As she handed her boarding pass to the agent, a familiar voice called her name. Turning, she saw Jorge running toward the gate, slightly breathless, drawing irritated looks from airport security. "I know you have to go," he said, reaching her. "I respect your work, your independence, all of it. But before you left, I needed to tell you something." Maya stepped out of the boarding line, heart pounding. "My editor called," Jorge continued, words tumbling out rapidly. "They want a photo series on marine conservation efforts across Southeast Asia. 2 years documenting the people working to save the oceans." His eyes held hers intently. "I suggested focusing on coral regeneration research, starting with a certain brilliant scientist's work in San Francisco." Understanding dawned slowly. "You're coming to San Francisco?" "Yes, for the start of the project. After that, I'll need to travel. Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, and possibly Australia if a certain research position comes through." Maya felt laughter bubble up inside her chest. "You reorganized your entire project?" "No," he corrected her gently. "I pitched a new one that matters to me on more than a professional level now." The final boarding announcement interrupted them. The gate agent called impatiently, "Miss Chen, are you boarding this flight?" Maya looked at the jetway, then back at Jorge. The choice suddenly seemed crystal clear, not between career and love, but between fear and possibility. "I need to cancel my ticket," she told the startled agent. "I'll be taking a later flight." Jorge's expression transformed with surprised joy. "What about your lab meeting?" "They can wait one more day," Maya said, feeling lighter than she had in years. "I think we need to discuss the parameters of this research project properly, preferably over dinner." As they walked away from the gate together, Jorge slipped his hand into hers. "You know, for someone who studies predictable patterns, you're remarkably unpredictable." Maya smiled, thinking of tides and currents, of the push and pull that brought distant shores together. Maybe that's the greatest discovery of all, learning that even scientists need to embrace uncertainty sometimes. Outside the airport, the Balinese sun bathed everything in golden light. Above them, planes traced paths across the sky, connecting distant points on the globe. Maya thought about the journey ahead, not just the physical distance, but the uncharted territory of building something meaningful across continents and careers. It wouldn't be easy. The pragmatist in her knew the challenges they faced, but as Jorge hailed a taxi, already talking excitedly about potential conservation sites they could document together, Maya recognized the rarest discovery of her scientific career, a hypothesis worth changing her life to prove. Some experiments, after all, were worth the risk of failure for the possibility of extraordinary results.